All right, good evening and welcome to the FinCom meeting of Thursday, June 12th. All right, first order of business is approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes, one from our May 1st meeting and one from our brief May 15th meeting that was held during town meeting. So I have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Eric. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, thank you very much. And now, we would like to invite our guests to join us at the table.
Good evening, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Kevin Shaughnessy. I'm the superintendent of the Light Department, and to my right is Dan Morrison.
Chief Operating Officer, Light Center.
Welcome.
So we're here, like we were last year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can ask us any questions you want. I don't know how you want to proceed. You're looking for a quick overview, or do you have questions that you want to ask us?
Yeah, we were definitely looking for an overview of, I think our focus is just, the light department is no longer a budget that we approve, but it certainly is still linked to the town, and if there were any liabilities on the light department, those become liabilities on the town. So it just seems that since we are overseeing all things fiscal for the town, we should be aware of any issues coming up with the light department.
I don't think that's necessarily true, but certainly the bonds, general obligation bonds would be
Yes.
backed up, but that's really the only thing. There's really no other liabilities that the town would assume. So the light department would have to go out of business first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't think that's a realistic thing that's gonna happen. One of the things it leads into is, we just had our rating, our S&P rating.
Mm-hmm.
And we, it's every 2 years. We actually meet with them every year. And so our rating held at A. We went up last year. We've improved quite a bit over the past few years. Some of our ratios, and this is public information. This is actually published today.
Mm-hmm.
So I can send you the link, or I can actually send it to you.
Can you, it would be really
Yeah,
nice
I mean,
if
it just came out,
Great.
it just came today, so I thought it would be
Good.
something you might be interested in.
Mm-hmm.
So, our liquidity is increased considerably to about 36 million. With days liquid is 232, it was 196 last year. Our debt is down about 8 million, and our debt to capitalization is about 33%, and it was 47% last year. So we're in pretty good shape. Overall, the light department this past year we sold a little bit more energy. If you look at our funds, and we're looking at it now because it's the end of the fiscal year, even though we're running on a a calendar budget, we still want to make sure that what we said was going to be is going to be there, and it will. Even though our receipts look light, also our expenses are. So, as far as what will be there at the end of June, we're confident that we think was going to be there is actually going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
We are moving forward with quite a few projects. The fiber to the home is about to go live, I would say, within the next month, probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks. As you've noticed, we haven't borrowed money. We said we were going to borrow money. One of the things that happened in the past, obviously because of COVID, we were delayed. But, ultimately, we had approval from town meeting to borrow up to, what was it, 11?
Yeah, I think it was 11.
And so, those years that we didn't really progress, we held because we didn't think it was good, the timing wasn't right. We were making money, broadband was making money. And so that alleviated the initial startup. And then, we've been doing pretty well on the electric side, so we've been taking, essentially electric's been loaning broadband money in the past few years. And we're looking at it as kind of our own band right now, because we don't know exactly what the number is gonna be, but we think it's gonna be about, when we're all said and done, about 6 million that the broadband will owe electric. They're paying interest right now, but we're not gonna have them pay the principal until we actually know what the number is. So that's essentially like, it would be banned. We think we'll know by the end of this year, and we don't think we're gonna have to borrow any money, which is good. That means that, obviously I think we're gonna be successful regardless, but I think this gives us an even greater chance of being successful, because the amount of money that we had in our feasibility plan was quite a bit more as far as the principal and interest. It's just probably cut in half, would you say?
Yeah.
And which is, I think, gonna give us we have to break even, we need a certain amount of customers. Now we need even fewer customers, and I think we're gonna get more than we actually have right now, so.
Yeah, I mean, well, what do you look at as the future of broadband? Because, there are people cutting the cord, and it seems as if people are going more to the streaming services. And I know the Light Department of Broadband actually is encouraging that.
Yes. And that's what we're seeing, and that's what we're setting ourselves up for.
Mm-hmm.
And with the speeds that we can provide with the fiber, it's a great resource to switch over to the broadband.
Mm-hmm.
The speeds are right there, and it's upstream and downstream.
Mm-hmm.
It's the 1 gig, 2 gig, 3 gig,
Mm-hmm.
whichever you want to sign up for.
Mm-hmm.
And we think the pricing's very competitive. We'll be able to hold our own.
Mm-hmm.
We're probably a little less than our competitors. And like Kevin said, in the next couple of weeks, we'll be coming out in some of the areas. We haven't built the whole system,
Mm-hmm.
but probably half of it's built.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be able to start offering it to those customers.
Okay.
And they have they're putting the software in place so customers can go on and say, is it in my area yet?
Mhm.
Yes, it is. You can sign up.
Okay.
Or when will it be in my area? And then we should be able to provide some type of answer on that as
Good.
well. So,
Okay.
There'll be quite a bit of hand-holding for some of our customers. We skew towards an older customer base.
I mean,
shouldn't say
I
older,
know.
a late career customer
Yeah.
base.
I mean, I know in my case, I was the one who used to tell my parents how to use the clicker on the television. Now I have to ask my kids, what do I do?
Yeah, I mean, but it's not just us. It'll be
Yeah.
Comcast in the future and Verizon. It's just not the way
Yeah.
the way it's done now is not going to be the traditional way now is not going to be
Yeah.
the way of the future. And you can see if you read some of the literature for the industry, it's just not going to be that way. I mean, you could be with Comcast and the premium stations will look like Netflix or
Yeah.
or Hulu or whatever. So we're going to work with the customers. We have some things in place right now so that we can go in and try and show them, how to get their video. About 2,000 of the customers, I shouldn't talk about this because it's probably more proprietary, but a lot of our customers are internet only,
Mm-hmm.
and we should be able to get those customers, right?
Yep.
They're not video. We can't compete on the video side because we can't get the content as cheaply as the competition. So
Mhm.
in the end, this was the way that, this is the future, and we're going to be by far the best as far as high-speed internet. We're going to have 1/1, 3/3, 5/5. They won't be able to compete with us. We're not looking to compete on price, but we will absolutely be able to compete on price. We're going to just be the best. And
Yep.
in the future, for Norwood, hopefully 20 years from now, or 5 or 10 years from now, people say, wow, look at what we have, and everyone else is paying 2-3 times that.
Yeah, you're still gonna have bundles like you do now?
Yeah, I don't think so. But we're gonna, we'll have discounts and so forth. It's and we have marketing people, and we have some ideas. And if they're not as successful, we'll change and we'll try and do different things.
Okay.
We're doing pretty well.
Good.
On the electric side, we are not going to raise our rates. I know someone asked that last year. Maybe Sarah asked it. We don't need to, which is good. We're probably about 17.5 cents on the residential side. I'm thinking Eversource and National Grid are maybe twice that, or right around twice that. But we always look at we're surrounded by Eversource, so naturally we look at that. But we look at the other. There's 41 municipal electric light departments in the state, and we look at the averages for them and the ones that compare to us. So we're in probably the bottom third or 40%, and that's hopefully going to get even better. The problem, not problem, but the future, as you know, is new. We have to comply with some climate stuff that we, by 2030, have to have 50% renewable energy in our portfolio. We're already there because of the purchase power agreements that we have, but that's more expensive than, you know, it is now. So in the future, there will be increases. There's going to be increases in transmission costs. And so, you know, this money that I spoke about that we put aside is going to hopefully help us, you know, it's not just there because, look at that, it's there because we're going to be able to help when we have to pay more, we want to use that so that we don't have to raise our rates.
Yeah, it'll be rate mitigation.
Yeah, it's rate stabilization is what it's called. So,
Yeah.
you know, right now, it's not, we don't need it, but in the future, I'm fairly confident that it's unfortunate, but we will need it. And, you know, it doesn't look to me like this year or next year, you know, because we're hedged out, we have a 3-year plan, and, you know, even though that 20% that isn't hedged, or 15 in some instances, 15%, yeah, we could have a really hot summer, and those costs for that little piece are gonna go up, and that does hurt us, but not enough that I think we wouldn't be able to just keep going the way we're going. So right now, things look good at the light department. I wouldn't think we couldn't be much better, I don't think, as far as the outlook. You know, the board has made some good decisions, and we're in a good place. And we don't have to pay all that debt from that case from, you know, that was around, the noose around our neck for 15 years. So.
Yeah.
So when they built the new headquarters on Access Road, there's space in that building for the broadband head-end equipment that's currently down, or was originally in the old building? Is there?
It would be expensive to move.
Okay.
You'd have to move all the fibers that are presently in that head
Okay.
end.
I thought
I
at some
think-
point there was the idea that you'd eventually do that. I didn't know what the time frame.
We've
for that
looked
would
at
be.
it, but the cost just didn't make a lot of sense. I think when we originally looked at it, we were looking at almost $11 million to move the
Okay.
head end.
Mm.
And just to move it for what, right there in that building we had was probably one of the most reliable buildings in the town, because it had 2 direct feeds from our other substation. So
Okay.
the chances of that going down, like even if the street was out of power, the head end didn't see it because there's a mini substation in there. So
Okay.
it would always stay on. So that's one of the big reasons we kept the head end there. It's
Okay.
just the reliability factor.
Mhm.
And then the other, obviously, so if we were to move that, it would have to be an awful good offer. Like, the money would have to justify it, because even now it wouldn't be as expensive, because when we looked at that price, it included a lot of the video and the satellite dish and all of those things. Well, those should be going away in the next few years on the video side. But you're still gonna have all your fibers, you're gonna have all your internet and that equipment, so you probably, I wouldn't even guess, but you're still probably at least 2/3 of that $11 million to move.
Yeah,
ahead, I
it's,
would guess.
so, you know, we're working to get, there's a substation in that building. Right? So whether, I don't know if people know that or not, but it's 13.8 substation is in the back, and we're moving to get, Dan was in the parking lot looking up at the poles, and he was telling me what was going on, and so that's gonna happen, I think, in the next few months or whatever. But the point is, what Dan said is absolutely correct. You know, we have what's called a hybrid fiber coax network, so we ran fibers pretty deep into the system. That's why we're able to do this fiber to the home project fairly reasonably compared to other places, because we already have fiber. Well, all originates from here, this building down the street. So to take that and then have it move somewhere else to originate from there is a big deal. And that's, not that it couldn't be done, and Dan's right, not having the video equipment and the satellite and all that, that would make it reasonable. But your question was simple, do we have space? Yes, we actually thought about that. It's the mezzanine, if you've been to the
I've seen the
building-
space, I've seen the space. I didn't know
Yeah.
whether that was like, okay, when the equipment is obsolete in 2030, you're gonna move it or something like that, or whether
I
it's-
mean, and that could be a plan that's done over time, right? If it comes to the point where, say the town was, you know, we're gonna get to the point where we're just gonna have that back piece. We're not gonna have any substation, and I know the town's using the building for offices and so forth, but we would be at a point where if someone were to say, well, we wanna use that building for something else, and then we'd have to, like you said, we'd have to put a plan in place to try and move everything down to the other building.
But it's not something imminent, because the equipment is gonna be obsolete in next year. It's just gonna be,
Yeah.
it's a theoretical thing.
The size of the equipment that they're gonna have and the rack space that they need for this new project is minimal compared to what's down there. I mean, it would be, based on what they told me, it sounds like maybe a quarter of it or even less than that.
Yeah, we went in the head end, and it's unbelievable the difference. It just cuts the whole footprint down significantly.
Mhm.
We could, if you wanted to, you could have Darryl come here sometime, Darryl or Rich, and speak to you about broadband. We're not the broadband. I
Right.
know what's going on, but we'd be glad to have them come talk to you sometime.
Well, that was one question I was gonna ask you is, I'm not sure I fully understand how, from an accounting point of view, like, light and broadband are they treated as two separate
The two separate
funds?
yes.
Right.
Yes.
There's 4 funds. There's 04 and 05. 04 is the kind of like the general fund for electric.
Mhm.
05 is depreciation, and 06 would be the similar to 04 for broadband, and 07 is their sort of depreciation. The broadband, so everything's set up under Chapter 164 Mass General Law, right? That's the light department's how
Right.
it exists, and the broadband is set up under that. So the broadband is a light department. It's not a department of the town. It's under the light department.
Subsidiary, basically.
Because we have to do 2 separate, the DTE stuff and the DPU report, we separate them out, and even though we don't have to, we use the similar accounts for broadband that we have in electric, just because it's public utility accounting, and we have people that do that.
Mhm.
So that's why it's set up that way. I don't know that it would have to be, but we take pains to make sure that we separate things out. We charge them for what's theirs, even parts of the facility, the building, and people, the customer service, all that gets done correctly. I know there's been tremendous improvements made since Jeff came, just because the munis made it easier, and Jeff works with our own, like Sue Bartlett,
Mhm.
and we've made significant progress, I think, in making sure that everything's charged correctly. Wouldn't you say so, Jeff?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. There's a lot of detail, and again, Sue does a great job, as we were talking about before, getting the detail, making sure everything's in the right buckets, which is important, which it hadn't been in the prior, so.
But the indirect charges just come from the light department. Broadband doesn't have its own separate indirect charges because it's all rolled through light. Is that how that works?
I believe we have indirect for both,
Okay.
yeah. Believe so, I'll double check, but
You-
the indirect is
you-
combined of the
Yeah,
two.
So the indirect, you're talking about like the monies that it goes both ways. So that
Mhm.
Water, sewer,
we
yeah.
pay
Right.
for,
Yeah.
obviously the town does things for light department, whether it's treasurer's office, Jeff's office,
Right.
purchasing, HR, whatever. And so there's a number there, but also the light department does things like water billing and things for the town, so that's
Right.
the other way. With broadband, there was a deal made years ago for fiber between all the town buildings and so forth, and the town, I don't really wanna talk too much about it because it was so long ago, but there's a number that the town contributes for that, because we maintain it, and
Mhm.
we paid for it, and they're supposed to, but that's the way it is. It's not a big number, I don't think, but it's there.
Okay. Sounds good. And now, so looking at your FY25 revenue estimates, were you pretty much on target? Where does
Yeah.
that stand?
Yeah, so I always do it the way I do it, and the way Dan and the rest of us, we do is kind of as a team, is we look at purchases first, right? So I'll know I'll know all salaries and all that stuff, and that always comes in because people leave or they retire or we have someone get hurt, whatever. So that number's always less than we thought, but as far as purchase power, it's all, I'm looking at the worst case, like we're saying, if it's really hot, it's really cold, these are numbers that we think we could have, and of course, we're looking at who's leaving, is this building gonna be done, is that building, so we carry a number, and sometimes, even though we sold a little bit more, the cost for that power was a little bit less than we thought, because we're always looking at we think, it might be 94, dollars a megawatt hour, and it ends up being 91. Well, when you're talking about 300 and,
Yep.
what are we, 328 million kilowatt hours, it's a significant number. So, yes, it's gonna be, the revenue's less, but also the expenses are less, and
Wait a minute, so the revenue is less than you expected, but
The
the
rev-
expenses are less?
Yes,
So your
yes,
profit
okay.
is good?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Our surplus
Yes,
will
the
be,
difference is-
our surplus will be what we need it to be,
okay.
and that's a good thing.
And then looking at the FY26 budget, what's your year-over-year increase?
It's minimal. I want to say it was like 0.2% or something.
Yeah. 2%. Because we also debt service coming off the books.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
but we also anticipate selling more kilowatt hours because we have some decent sized customers coming online
Mhm.
in the next year, including the school.
Yeah, does that also include FM Global?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And actually, we turned their switchgear on last Saturday. So,
Cool.
Oh, wow.
so they're
That's
ready
exciting.
to start cutting over some of the stuff.
Good.
Now, obviously, they're not going to be going,
Mhm.
turning everything on.
Yeah.
But they should be turning things on in the next month or two.
Good.
So,
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things that happen on the purchase power side that we just have to take our best guess at. You know, we're a pool transmission facility,
Yeah.
and we look at we turn in our revenue requirements to the ISO, and then they tell us at some
Mhm.
point what we're gonna get, and that comes off of our bill. And
Mhm.
we're usually pretty close,
Yeah.
but, you know, it can be $500,000 difference or whatever. So all of those things make a difference, and we try and estimate conservatively so that, you know, if it comes in better, it comes in better. But, you know, I think we're right about where we expect it to be.
Mhm.
And we never know until the end of the, you know, I don't know how hot it's gonna be the rest of this month, and we'll see what happens, but, you know, we just have to pay our last bill for power at, you know, in June, and then we look at it, and because the town closes out, you know, at the end of June, we have to kind of go along with that, even though we're looking at the whole year. And once that's done, it's done, and then we start over again. So,
Okay.
In terms of pricing that you're paying for power, that's not varying on a daily basis, is it? I mean, the total amount, the power consumption is varying, but the price per,
yeah, so like I said, we're hedged a certain amount, we have contracts, but we're hedged to, say, 80%, and we might have, or 85, we might have 15 or 20% open. In the day-ahead market, if we needed it, because we have people that do that, we don't necessarily do that.
Okay,
So Energy
yeah.
New England does that for us, so they'll be looking at that, and, you know, if it gets hot out, then the prices go up. Or if there's a war in the Ukraine and the gas prices go up, then that's, you know, electricity follows that. So, yeah, we are exposed for that amount, but it also could be less.
right.
And frequently it is less.
Mhm.
So, you know, it's just, we estimate a number for all in based on the available information we have. And I think last year, like I said, it was like, you know, I'm talking megawatt hours, but it would be like 9.5 cents, right? Instead of $94. And it came in around a little bit less, I think. And last year it was considerably less. It was in the 80s, and we had estimated the same thing. So it's, you know, we're doing the best we can with the information we have, but sometimes it's a little bit, we get a better deal than we thought. You know, it could be the renewables, it could be there was more water, and we have some hydro, and the output, we're buying a percentage of it. So if it's good, it's good for us. Or if there's more sun or more wind, but it can happen the other way too. So,
Yeah.
and then we're exposed.
It could
to-
rain for the entire spring.
It could be
Every
Yeah.
Saturday.
Yes.
It might.
Look what happened in Spain and Portugal, right? The
Yeah,
whole
sure.
country.
Yeah.
So those things happen. It can be, yeah, you can get cloud cover in New England for a week, I bet. You know?
So you,
E&E tracks us all the time. We get weekly updates on what the pricing looks like.
Okay.
So like Kevin said, it does vary, but not significantly. But it does vary.
I mean, your
based on-
power purchase, I assume, are kind of like a layer cake. You've got a certain base level that you're paying you get all the time, and you pay a certain rate for that, and then if you need the next,
Yeah, it's
Level
in
of
blocks.
access.
So
Yeah,
it's-
blocks, yeah.
Blocks,
Okay.
yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
the you know, the busy time, like the 5 weekdays from, you know,
right,
6 to 8, I think, is a certain number. Then from 8 to 6 on the weekdays is different, then the weekends is different. So you buy it, you know, they'll talk about, you hear people talk about one of the problems that they have with renewable energy is base load. The peak times around here are usually between 4 and 8 in the afternoon. And you know, all the solar we have is not really on peak because it's not going to be sunny most of the time after a certain period of time.
Right.
So that leaves us vulnerable, and that's why you keep talking about storage, batteries, and it's gonna. But again, those are only small time frames. You know, you're talking the batteries might have 4 hours of output, whatever. So all of that's really expensive, and like you just said, if it's raining for a couple of days, then you need something else.
Right.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot. You see, if you're reading the newspapers about nuclear and AI and people are plants that we thought would never see the light of day are being looked at again to be recommissioned,
Mhm.
right? And that's what's happening. You know?
Mhm.
But anyway,
Any other questions? Nope. All right, well, thank you very much.
thanks.
Thank you.
Just to say thank you and
See you guys.
good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be happy to come back if you want to talk to broadband. I honestly didn't even think of it, but I probably should have asked them to come. Anyway.
Welcome to see the head end anytime you want to. I'm sure
Yeah.
they're always happy to show it off.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Just on the indirect, so it's from the light only to the general fund, but both broadband and light are charged for their insurance pensions, so those are direct
Okay.
allocated
Okay,
charges.
but we're just seeing it.
We're just seeing from them, because obviously, as they just mentioned, they're
Right,
seeing
that makes
stuff.
sense, but that's why I was trying to understand how that all
Yeah,
fit
In the
together.
past, there was a little bit difference, but now we're charging each fund the proper allocation for those other charges that would have been classified as indirect in the past.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. All right, next up is airport review. Jeff, thank you for sending us some information. Do you want to walk us through this a little bit?
Yeah, again, it's just kind of a year-to-date budget status report on both the airport, and then when we get to recreation, same thing. Again, not my area of expertise in terms of running the airport or all of their operations, but this is the current information that we have versus the FY26 budget. So you can kind of see how we're doing. I don't know if there's any specific questions. Like I said, these are the numbers.
I guess the only question I have is when you talk about specialized town council. Well, that's specialized town council for the town?
Correct, so in the general fund,
Yeah.
legal counsel bucket, there's a line item of special counsel.
Okay, all right, no, just because, when you did, when you did this, you added the total to the, to the expenses. So it sort of seems as if all those legal expenses were associated with the airport.
Correct, so what that is, so the 165 budget number is the total that's in the general fund budget.
Yep,
The 120,000 I put in there is attributable to the legal counsel for the airport
Okay.
for the year.
all right,
Oh.
But
gotcha.
my note is that 165 is not dedicated just to the airport.
Gotcha,
going forward.
okay.
That's other counsel,
Understood.
other labor counsel we may use, or something else could be in the bucket. But the expense is attributable to the airport.
That one is good, okay, good, thank you.
And the bottom line here is it looks like their expenses are a little under budget and revenues are a bit over budget.
Correct, correct.
So, looking at the, and then like looking at the FY26 budget, Jeff, thank you for adding that on there. It looks like, okay, revenues, we're projecting that FY26 would be greater than FY25, the expected number from FY25, but the actual number year-to-date from FY25 is higher than the projection for FY26, so that's good.
So it's good, yeah. So
Yeah.
this is one of those that we looked at and said, okay, what's the trend? Remember, we did the trend analysis
Yes.
on this one. So I think it was under budgeted in terms of the revenue in the past.
Mhm.
But you're also dealing with the, and I hate bringing up COVID, but you were dealing with those years where there was
Right,
a much
we were
lower revenue
looking
number,
back,
So it was a
right.
conservative number in that.
Yeah.
So
That
again,
makes
I
a lot of
think
sense.
The 26 budget seems to true up what we would actually expect.
Yeah, and then the direct expenses, again, we're expecting FY26 to be a little higher than FY25, but year-to-date FY25 is looking lower than what we're budgeting for FY26, so this seems reasonable. But then I was a little confused by this expense total number down at the bottom, like,
That's just, I added in the legal, so again, I put the full
But that-
165 in there, which again, doesn't
It
really make
doesn't-
sense, but it's kind of what we've been asked for from others, saying,
but
okay.
what is that added to?
So 309 plus 1,
355.
I guess what,
So 345 plus
325,
165 is not 856.
Oh, sorry, I didn't even see that one. Yeah, you're right. I was looking at the FY26 budget line, yeah.
yeah.
So those numbers just that's just a formatting error.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
All right, that was the
Yeah,
number
'cause
that was,
this one adds up,
Yeah.
but that one doesn't add
Yeah.
up.
All
These
all right,
two-
that was
Yeah,
really
we
throwing
didn't
me.
catch those.
Yeah, this
Okay.
doesn't. So
I was
something
like, wait a
happened there,
minute.
yeah.
Something happened in those 2 lines, yeah.
Right, I was
Apologies
thinking
on
like we
that.
budgeted $520,000 and
I
we're
think we
spending
originally-
$740. I was like, well, that's not good.
So we originally had the town council numbers up in the direct expenses. We took those out, but we probably did not fix the formula on that.
Ah, got it, okay, all right. So I will ignore that last line and then I
Yeah,
feel
we can
better.
update it.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Never
I didn't
mind.
even see that.
Never mind. Well, I guess what this shows is that the, basically, it's coming out as a positive number.
The direct expenses versus direct revenues, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that's always been one of the questions people have had in town meeting. I mean, setting aside the fact that no, it simply on its own can't close the airport. Does it generate any money, or what the loss is? And here, I think it seems to indicate that it's a slight positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you'd have to factor in some of the benefits costs and some
Right.
of the,
Yeah.
but it's still looking,
It's close
Like-
to a wash.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Positive wash.
there's also, as we've talked about before, economic benefits
Mm-hmm.
not directly related to,
Right.
jet fuel
Yep.
revenue, but
Yep.
just by
Just
having.
having the airport, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
As I know, there were some questions at the last town meeting about fees. And again, it's good to see that, at a minimum, we're breaking even.
Yeah, and I think Mr. Ryan mentioned that they did, FY '24, they did look at the fees, so they are
Yeah.
looking at them on a regular basis.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
All right, great.
Policies.
What's that?
Per our
Yeah,
policies.
exactly.
Yes. All right, and then the recreation department review.
Yeah, so same here, so hoping I did not make the same formatting mistake on that and the totals.
Nope.
Again, I give you the breakout of, we have the general fund recreation, we have the revolving fund, and then the extended day, so basically all 3 parts of recreation. One of the things I've mentioned in the past, but Tony, myself, and Sam, the recreation director, are gonna sit down and kind of look at the revenues. The big one in there is the rec play camp fees. So that program has changed a little bit. I guess it used to be 2 through 5, and then, or 2 through 4, 5 through 8. They've changed it to be 2 through 5 now, if I'm getting this right. It's basically shrunk a little bit. And
Okay.
the other piece is in the revolving fund. So I'm not sure what happened there. So there's 2 programs, there's rec and then there's the senior camp programs. The senior one is in the revolving fund.
Okay.
So my question to Sam was, does this make sense to have this one still in the general fund? Probably doesn't, so we're gonna sit down in the next couple of weeks
Okay.
and reevaluate that, so. If you looked at that, we'd take out the revenue from the rec play camp fees, the $181,000 for FY '26. But then we take out the corresponding expense as well.
Okay.
So that may be a change that's coming, or we may wait and see what happens in '27 when we have a new budget, but that's part of the whole budget review that we're gonna do.
So why do you have to move this?
So what happens is, so the general fund should subsidize basically a pool, something that's not going to cover its costs. The
Okay.
programs that they have, the Easter, some of the other stuff that they do for the town in general, that they're not looking to make a profit or cover their costs
Yeah.
on. In the revolving fund, if you're running these play camps and programs, you're
Should be.
expected to cover the cost of that.
Cover it, yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And again, generate maybe a slight profit as well, so you can invest back into some of those programs or buy some materials, infrastructure. We talked about, on the capital plan, there may be a couple things on there that could partially be funded by the extended day, or by the revolving fund.
Okay.
Thank you. So when we do look at revenues, FY '26, we were projecting an increase over FY '25. But as of this report, which we were under our expected revenues for FY '25. Now, I also understand that it's quite likely that Play Camp suddenly has all of its revenues at the very end of June.
No, so that will be a shortage because of the
Okay.
way they've structured the program. There's less kids in that particular camp that's in the general fund.
Okay.
So
the
are-
revenue will be like, that number's probably as much as we're going to get.
Okay, so then do we have a problem for the FY '26 budget?
Again, if we take the 181 out of there, no. If we leave that in there, we're not gonna make the 181, yes.
Okay,
There will be a short revenue there, but most likely because we budgeted conservatively in the other lines, we may be able to see a little
it'll
bit of that.
wash out. Okay. And our FY '26 estimate for costs was lower than our FY '25 estimate for costs because of change at department head, is that?
The department head, and then we also removed one, there were four staff members, there's 3 now, so we
Okay.
reduced one position.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's probably a question more for Sam, but I was wondering why the pool went down from 50,000 to 11,000. You know, just what the rationale for the budget number. I don't know if it was related to the fact that a new pool's coming online. But,
Yep, that's a number, I would say that's vastly conservative on that one, so
Okay.
I think that one will be, I know they did raise the fees, obviously with
Okay.
both pools, so that number should be higher
Okay.
going forward,
All right.
actual.
Okay.
So we're gonna keep both pools running.
As far as I know, that's the plan, unless something changes. For this year.
Yes,
For
I
this
think
year,
that's
yeah.
the problem for the plan for this year. Yes, I think that
You want to
There's
see how it
decisions
goes,
to be made.
basically, yeah.
after that.
Yeah. I think there's, in the capital plan, you'll see some stuff with the Father Max to determine what's gonna happen there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, revolving,
So
Is-
revolving, there's not a lot of information for you to review. The way we do it here is, we have all the revenues in one bucket, salaries and expenses, all, salaries one line, expenses all in another. So again, the overall goal is to, cover your program costs with the revenues.
Mhm.
And again, that's something with Sam, they had new software, they went to a different software last year, they're back to the original software for next year. So we've got a good plan to go forward to say, okay, by program, how are we doing?
oh, great,
And
okay.
again, it's not every program's gonna be profitable, you're gonna
Of
subsidize
course.
some of the others, but they will have a
Mhm.
better reconciliation of each program. So they've put a lot of time and effort working with Alex on the treasury side as well to make sure that there's online payments and
Mhm.
the fees associated are properly allocated.
Okay.
And when we set up the revolving funds, we have, town meeting has to approve a maximum for the revolving fund. Which number is it that maximum
So the
corresponds
recreation
to?
revolving fund is a departmental fund, so we do not need the approval for that one.
Oh, so it does not have a limit?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Doesn't the
That's-
extended day, or?
Yes, the extended day is the one that we put in there, and we upped it to 850, I believe it was. 850,000.
So that would be the maximum amount that should be in the fund at any one time?
It's the maximum amount that they should spend in an annual basis. So
Okay.
we've already, based on our projections, we're probably gonna have to up that next year.
Yeah, I see this
So we did
is-
last year was a small number. I think when the fund was created, I wanna say it was only 125,000 or something last year. I think it was kind of similar to what was a different fund. This year in town meeting, we did bump that up to 850 on our expected expenses. Once we get through this year and we project next year, we'll probably have to raise that at next year's town meeting as
So
well.
it should be kind of like this number here?
Correct, correct.
So it should be that number, basically, yeah,
And
okay.
again, the extended day, so just jumping into that, so working with Erin too, we'll get a budget created on that. Talked to her earlier this week. Again, they're just trying to get their year end
Mhm.
done, trying to figure everything out.
Right.
Okay.
But to your question, it should be self-supporting. There is a healthy balance. When we took it over from the schools, we had a healthy
Mm.
balance in there. We allocated a portion of that free cash,
Mm-hmm,
as I mentioned. So I think when we get certified free cash this year, that balance, I guess the agreement we had was we will do that again. We will move that money over to the extended day.
right, whatever was left in the
Yeah.
school,
So it's roughly, I forget what
balance.
the number, until 330,000 or something like that. So we'll see an article either in the fall or the spring, depending on the timing when we want to do that. But that will be, again, to pay for the initial cost of next year's programs.
right. Okay. But I'm glad to hear that because this was a big change to move extended day out from the schools.
Yeah.
and into the rec department, and so it's good that it's looking like it's a success and that
Mhm.
it's going to be
And
self-sustaining.
there's been a lot of work on everybody's part, and including, my teams in terms of the accounting and making
Oh,
sure,
yeah.
everything, because again, the schools had a little bit different mechanism for how they did things. Here, it's gotta be a little bit more line item specific, so
Mhm.
Okay.
it's,
Yeah, and I know that there
Learning
were,
curve for all of us.
It was
Yeah.
kind of an odd thing, I thought, when they had it at the schools. It just
Mm.
never made sense to me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I'm curious, what's the miscellaneous receipts?
where were you reading?
To the even 400,000.
Yeah, for
that's
the,
the free cash movement that we made.
okay. Okay.
all right. Any other questions about the rec department?
Do you, I have one thing.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's more to be done with the rec department? A lot more, or just a little, or?
Oh, I have no idea, that's,
You don't
that's,
know.
that's
Okay.
all my,
No, I'm talking about the money side of it. Yeah.
in terms of,
Are we doing well as, like, are we doing the things the correct way? Have we got all of those things that, you know, that are only there to pay for exactly A, and
yeah, I think that's what we're gonna work towards. Obviously,
Yes.
Sam's got
Okay.
almost a year under his belt now, so
Yeah.
he understands as a director of how
Okay.
we wanna see this going forward.
yeah,
So
Alright.
the answer is, no, we weren't there before. I think we were getting there, and then we had the disruption with the leadership.
mm-hmm,
So now that Sam's there, he's got a good handle on it, so
Okay.
we'll have that going forward, yes.
okay, all right. Is there any other thing that you think of that could help them and support them? No?
No, not that I'm aware of,
Okay.
not from a financial side, no.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
We've worked with the vendors, we worked with their, their MyRec software, and making sure that we can do that. The fees are baked in versus, on the town side, we can't
Mhm.
absorb the fees.
Yeah,
So we won't absorb the fees, but we'll increase the
Mhm.
actual price that people pay, so they don't
Mhm.
see a fee on top of that.
okay,
So it makes it a little bit more user-friendly, if you want, so they're not questioning, hey, there's an additional fee on top of this program fee. Everything's in that one line
Oh,
item
that's
that
good.
you're buying,
Yeah.
yeah.
thank you.
All right. Next item is the FY '23 audit.
Yeah, so the good thing is we finally got the FY '23 audit. Much later than obviously is ideal, much later than market practice, much later by GFOA standards, all of that, so. A lot of that had to do with the prior audit firm. Had
Yes.
some issues, they went through a couple of different mergers. So there was a lot of distraction on their part, and then CBiz, who was the ultimate entity that bought them, wanted their own review of all their audits, so that put all of their clients well behind. So we did get the audit. Unfortunately, this has the ripple effect with the fiscal year '24 audit, which I would hope to have done by now. They couldn't finalize their work until they got this, so when they got this in April, they started working on ours again. Obviously, their schedule is a little bit different, so they had some other
Mhm.
clients that are jumping in front of us now.
Mhm.
But I did talk to him Monday. He called me and said, they're getting back into Norwood's audit. So hopefully '24 will be done in a somewhat timely fashion from now,
Mhm.
and then we're gonna jump right into '25. So, there's no rest on the audit side.
Yep, do we have a long-term contract with them?
We have a 5-year contract
Okay,
with a new auditor.
okay.
And they've been really good to work with. Again, I didn't work with any Markham, whoever they were before, and CBiz, outside of harassing them, once a week to say, hey, I need this.
Yeah, okay.
But in terms of the audit itself, if you look through it, there's no significant issues. There was one material weakness regarding accrual of unpaid bills for or unpaid invoices for the water sewer department.
Mhm.
Just quickly, we addressed it, said, okay, that's fine. We
Okay.
understand that, that'll be fixed in '24. The management had a responsibility to respond to that. But outside of that, they do have there's a significant, I think, deficiency or significant concern they have, but that's standard with everybody. You'll see that in this one too. It's basically management can override controls. That's
Right.
everywhere. So that's a standard in all the audits.
But no significant red flags?
No.
Mhm.
And again, from what we're hearing from the new auditor as well, same thing. That there were a couple of items he wants to talk to the Treasury about, just in terms of timing,
Mhm.
medical insurance, some of the stuff that we accrue.
Yeah,
Because we're accruing employee deductions in June for a July payment.
Yeah.
So it's just a little bit.
Seems as if these are more mechanical issues
Exactly.
as much as anything
Exactly.
else.
Yep, but the financial reports where, everything that's been put out there is relevant, there's no material misstatements, there's really no concern on that point,
Good.
so.
Good.
Great.
The only thought I had is we put this is a 23 audit, we put it in the 25 folder. Should it go in the 23 folder or the
It should
24
be on its
folder?
own, it's in a different folder.
Well,
Yeah,
it's in
right.
the 25 folder for our meetings.
Yeah. that-
Okay,
I
So,
think she,
like when we think about the 25 thing, it's like when
when
we're
we consider,
meeting.
okay, is it somewhere
And
else?
it's
Maybe
like
I
the
Yeah, I
meeting
think-
materials.
let me just,
What I should have looking. Oh, there, okay.
yeah, so do we still have it in here?
It had,
Yeah,
that's where I
gotta come
found
out,
it.
Yep, so
Okay.
that's gotta come out there, so I think originally when,
It
when
was
I asked
down
to
in the
put it-
folder below.
Oh, okay.
It's supposed to be in
Yeah.
the audited financial statements. That's the tab that should be in, so I'll make sure we
Okay.
take it out of the 25 May town meeting
That's
reports.
all I had.
Yeah. Okay. That's. But I was thinking that it was in our Google Drive, and our Google Drive is just organized according to like the materials
Yeah,
that
no,
we
I
look at
understood
at
that.
each meeting.
No, this was
yeah.
on the
The town
town website where
Yes.
the
Okay.
public was looking for it, so, okay. I just didn't scroll down for it.
Yeah.
All right. End of year transfers.
Yes, so as explained, so the departments have until this Friday, tomorrow, to get their purchase orders and all their other stuff in. So I didn't want to give any potential transfers, but I can talk about 4 that we most likely know of. And again, these are repeat offenders from prior years. So the treasurer expenses is the EMS billing.
Oh, okay.
So again, it's
Okay.
an expense,
Wow.
it's great
But it's
because we're
good-
collecting
it's a
more
good
revenue.
news, yeah,
Exactly.
it's
So
really
we
good
got more
news, yeah.
revenue there. So right now, that looks to be about $58,000. Elections, the expenses, Mary Lou and her team had a bunch of, because there were a number of elections,
Mhm.
Yeah.
the postage, printing, all of that expense increased, so that's
Yeah.
about 23,000, again, offset by some state money.
Mhm.
So not all,
Yeah.
the town's not on the hook for all of that money. Snow and ice removal, this one, unfortunately, we did have it in town meeting. I thought that was it. We had a late stipend payment that hit right before town meeting. That's about $25,000.
Mhm.
So basically, that's in their contract, there's a number of employees that get it's a $900 salt stipend. That wasn't processed because we were still working on a bunch of contracts. That wasn't processed until late April, so
Okay.
we just kind of, instead of updating the numbers right at the town meeting and kind of having some confusion, I said, I'll just bring it at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, in the total snow and ice budget, are we still on the plus side?
Yeah, so this is the same thing, that will be covered by contracted services.
Yeah,
So that
okay.
will be, so, we'll be fine, we'll be flat
Okay.
in the year.
All right.
Okay.
Then the other one is the waste removal. Again, it's roughly $150,000 we're looking at right now.
Mhm.
But again, waiting to get the May and June bills in to determine what that actual number is.
Okay.
Because that's based on tonnage, right?
Correct. It's based on how much they're taking out. So, and again, this is I think this is the most expensive year of the contract based on some of their parameters that they had in there. And I was kind of just looking at it. It does look like the tonnage is going up, so people are throwing away more, so
Mm.
we have to pay more.
Spring cleaning.
Yeah, yeah. So those are the ones I know about now. I don't anticipate anything else. Overall, no
Okay.
concerns. Revenue is, we're at 98% by the time we book June, and plus we haven't booked the light department's money, so we'll be over 100% in revenue. And budgets, we should be under 100% utilized, so
Mhm.
another good story there.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Good.
So we'll approve the transfers at the next meeting, is that the idea?
Yeah, we'll need like
Yeah, so-
formal
Yeah, so
requests and.
once I get them,
Yep.
I'll send them out to you, and I think July 10th is our meeting?
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
selectmen have July 8th, and then you guys have July 10th, so we'll have the final version there. But again, there shouldn't be, I don't anticipate springing any surprises on you.
And
Snowstorm.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
so we had enough in the snow and ice budget to cover, it's just a transfer like within the snow and ice budget. What about waste removal? Do we have,
So once I figure that out, I gotta figure out if DPW has enough in some of their other lines, or if we need to pull that from something else.
okay. We had, what, 175,000 in our like reserve?
Reserve fund, is
Fund?
it 150?
150?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so we have to have.
And we haven't
some-
touched
Yeah, and
that
I-
yet.
and again, for this, I wouldn't recommend touching that either, because that's again for unforeseen expenses. this is kind of a budgetary issue. If we didn't have anywhere else to pull it, then I'd recommend that, but I think
Okay.
we'll have other lines. It may not match up exactly, again, I'll try to keep it in that infrastructure, just so the overall bucket is spent,
Yeah,
but we'll see where we go.
Okay.
okay,
On elections, I think the expenses, I think we can get away with the part-time salaries, I think weren't utilized, so I think we'll be okay there.
Mhm.
all right, great. Any other questions about that?
No?
All right, any other topics for discussion?
Do you want to talk about the agenda, just the long-term agenda, just? to be
Yes,
here?
let's talk about the long-term agenda. That's right, we didn't actually put that as a, sorry, I didn't put that as a,
Okay.
thing, so, our long-term agenda ends, July 10th. We're just talking about end-of-year
The
transfers.
short-term agenda.
Right, right, our short-term agenda and our financial policies. And then, maybe we should also put, long-term agenda, for the next year.
And develop long-term agenda.
And just, I know there was some, not confusion, but some potential issues this year with certain meetings. I know there is a proposed town calendar that has been put out.
I saw that, yeah.
Okay, so that's all, did you guys?
John actually
Yeah.
shared that with
Yeah.
me, yes, yes.
I didn't know if he
So
shared it.
that was,
Okay.
Yeah.
yes,
Good, okay, so that's out there, so then we can build around that, so we don't have any conflicts.
right,
Okay.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, so that was very helpful to be on that distribution list this year.
Yeah, I didn't know it was on that, so, okay, good.
All right, so, also we could set an August meeting now if people are interested, but we can also wait till July to figure out and come up with a proposed calendar. If you want, I can come in with a proposed calendar
That would
for
be
next
good.
meeting. Okay, all right, so I wanna put that on my action items. Develop proposed calendar, but I also want to remind you that typically in August is when we reorganize and elect a new chair.
Mhm.
So maybe my last thing I'm gonna do is develop a proposed calendar for next year. I mean, I'll run the meeting in July too, but.
And did we just had a note here about an additional meeting to meet with the advisors or the auditors?
We were hoping to meet with the auditors after the FY24 audit was complete.
So that's
Yes, so that is timing dependent.
not independent. How
I
about,
talked to him, he has no problem once it's
Floating.
done coming in and, yeah.
yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah.
And the financial advisors do that at the same time, or?
So
I
again,
think Jeff
still-
was
yeah.
suggesting the auditors as opposed to the financial
Oh, okay.
advisors.
Yeah, because again, the financial advisors that we have, they're really our municipal bond advisor,
Oh, okay.
so they don't add the value I think you're looking for. I think what you're gonna be looking for is from the auditor to say, okay, how is the town doing?
Mm-hmm.
And then when we go out to our next bond issue, we'll have to deal with the rating agencies. So at that point, maybe we can bring some further information from the rating agencies. That would be more beneficial. But
Okay.
I just don't think, and I know they've come in the past, so
Mhm.
I'm not trying to say they have no value. They have a lot of value to us on the municipal side if we're going out to bond offering, because they can help us with timing with the market, what's going on out there. But they're really not in a position to opine on the town's financials.
Mhm.
They can give you more of a color on what's out in the market, but again, I'm not sure that has value to this
Okay.
Mhm.
group.
Okay.
I mean, maybe, for some very specific purposes, but as a general rule,
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yeah, and again, after we do if we do, I wouldn't say a small bond issue doesn't make sense, but if we have a bigger one, and again, there's no plans as of right now, so this is looking down the road. It may be beneficial to have them on afterwards, say, hey, here's the market, here's what we heard
Yeah.
about the town.
Yeah.
Because that's where they'll add the value, is what
Yeah.
are investors saying, how did it go?
Yep.
Did they have big investors that didn't participate? Did they have some that they, are participating that they didn't see in the
Yeah.
past? That's where the value would be from their side.
Yep, okay.
In terms of other topics to discuss, I just wanted to share a little feedback I had heard regarding town meeting, that there were some town meeting members who were saying they would love to get materials further in advance and more consolidated rather than, like 5 different mailings. I think we got about I think the warrants have to come out first. That there's no changing that. But then we sent, there's the yellow sheets and the pink sheets, and there's other information that comes out. As you know, we have no role in the yellow sheets, and so there's a limit to how much we as a FinCom can control this. But I do know that the proposed calendar that went out has the motions meeting happening earlier, like roughly a week earlier than it has in the past. And part of the reason we have always kind of voted, we typically vote on our pink sheets like a week and a half before town meeting
Don't have
starts,
much room.
because we want to make sure everybody has at least a week with the information, but we are also kind of waiting to see what the final numbers are on some places and some things. And so, but with the motions meeting happening a little bit earlier, hopefully this means that numbers are going to come out a little bit earlier. So I think, I like the idea of trying to get the pink sheets out a little bit earlier, and maybe trying to coordinate with other pieces in town hall so that information goes out in a better way. And then perhaps in the fall, in the spring, we are officially sending out the budget book, right? That's the report from FinCom, and there's a whole lot of information in there. But perhaps in the fall, it would make sense to send out, I don't know, I'm kind of of two minds of whether or not it makes sense to send out a presentation in advance.
For the fall meeting, town meeting?
Yeah, just in general, I think it's good if people have slides that they can look at when we're going through the slides. Sometimes the slides are not designed to be a standalone piece of information. It's meant to be a visual as you have a discussion about it. And I sometimes don't want the visuals out there if they're just going to add more questions than they are going to answer questions, right? But maybe it would make sense for us to generate some sort of small report, in addition to the pink sheets are just very dry.
Yeah.
It's just a spreadsheet.
Here it is, yeah.
Right. And so and we write a letter to go with the pink sheets, but
But it doesn't encompass everything.
no. And so maybe it would be appropriate for us to, so I'm just kind of throwing it out there for us to
Yeah.
think about, is there a way that we would like to, if there's a story that we want to tell at town meeting and have everyone understand, is there information we want to send out in advance? And to my knowledge, we've never done that in the past in the fall.
No, I mean, a couple of things. I know in the past, we have had presentations available at the front desk, for people if they're interested. But we've never sent them out in advance, was usually, because of things changing, like numbers seem a lot of times change at the last minute. We usually wait until the last few days until we finalize the presentation.
Right.
Absolutely.
The other thing, and Madam Moderator brought that up at the Selectmen's meeting this week, is whether we want to have a situation where the FinCom makes its presentation to town meeting and then opens it up to town meeting members to ask questions in general types of questions to the FinCom on certain things. As an example, not that you use $20 million in free cash in this account and 50,000 in that account. It's like, why are you using all this free cash as an example?
Right.
Things like that. General types of questions to open up the meeting. So again, something else to think about.
Sort of under the reports
Yeah.
article.
I think just the one concern is obviously trying to get everything out earlier. A lot of what we're waiting for is on the state level as well, so.
Right.
Yeah.
We
Right.
can't get it out earlier.
Yeah.
Right. No, I
So-
totally
so
understand.
there's some
Exactly.
there.
Yeah.
The other, to your point, I think, this is just me. We have exhaustive meetings between Finance Commission, budget balancing. These are all posted meetings that nobody attends, where a lot of those questions
I know.
should be answered prior to getting town. And I understand town meeting is still an opportunity for that, but I don't know if there's more of a effort to, hey, this meeting's happening. Again, that's just me. I haven't talked to anybody about it, but
The only
And we
time
deal with it-
I
we
can,
Deal with it in every town, the same things come up every,
I can-
every meeting, it's the same thing.
I can ever recall people attending, budget balancing is when we're doing an override.
Right.
Yeah.
The only time I can ever remember, people in the FinCom, other than, an occasional person here or there for a particular question, is when we were, this is years ago, talking about the school budget, and we're looking at reduce certain items, and, the people who supported those items came out in droves, so. But generally, people don't show up.
No, exactly. Yeah, but it's important to make sure that people understand, if anybody's watching, that these are the opportunities that are out there.
Yeah.
Right,
And you do have it, so.
yeah. Although I
And we
do.
do have it on TV.
Right, we do. But I also do think that there's value in specifically soliciting feedback. And maybe that's not at town meeting, maybe there's, and like, FinCom is an advisory board to town meeting, so it's unclear exactly what our role should be. It's not like we hold public hearings in the same way that the school does, or that the planning board does, or that, but maybe, I think that there are going to be some judgment calls that we're going to have to make in the next year or two.
Mhm.
And we can make arguments for doing this or doing that, but I think ultimately it comes down to the community making decisions, right? And, I look at it and I think, if we had to live with a budget without any override going forward, and we needed to create a sustainable budget, I would probably want to say, what are the fundamental roles of government? And I think, we definitely need, things like the building inspector and stuff like that. We need that role, and there's no other organization that can serve that role. We need police and fire and DPW, and there's no other roles that could, there are other communities that just don't pay for trash, and everybody contracts it out on their own. So maybe that's not a fundamental part, but certainly police and fire, I think, we certainly need an assessor's office. We need a budget, a finance office. We need, that kind of main stuff. But if people really don't want to spend additional money, there are other things that I think are really valuable to the town of Norwood, but are not fundamental parts of something that a government must do. So I think, the rec department, the library, the senior center, and I would hate to see any of those things go away, but I think if we can't bring in more revenue, my guess is that that's where we would start cutting.
Yeah.
But I think that that information would kind of need to get out there, and we would need to get some feedback from the community and say, what things are here that you really value? What is it that you want to keep and are willing to pay for?
Well, hopefully, I know the selectmen talked about setting up a group between the FinCom, the school committee, and the selectmen to talk about what the budget would look like, assuming no free cash. Maybe we'll have those answers by fall town meeting. I don't know, but.
I will say that I have not heard anything from any members of the Board of Selectmen or any
Okay.
members of Town Hall asking us to
Okay.
send a representative to that meeting. So I
Okay.
don't know that there is any sort of meeting planned.
Okay,
There is I did sit down with a member of the Board of Selectmen getting the final memo organized, so I believe it's coming out shortly.
okay. But there's, not to put any cart before the horse, there are, many ways to skin the cat, so it's just a matter of how we look at it.
But I think if we're looking at reducing our budget by on the order of $7 million, I don't believe that there is any way to do that without reducing paid positions.
No, because the budget is mostly paid positions.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
You could even, I mean, hypothetically, if you wanted to go, I'm not saying that this is what we're gonna do, but, I mean, hypothetically, you go to a trash fee, great, that takes a couple of $1 million off the budget. Still doesn't get you down to where you have to be.
No.
And it's never going to. Again, the
Yeah.
underlying concept of mass municipal finance, you can raise your revenues 2.5, you add local receipts, you're getting 4% a year, right?
Hopefully.
Yeah, exactly, in the best case scenario.
Yeah,
Expenses, I mean, we're all seeing your personal lives, they're going up more than 4% in every aspect of life.
Mm-hmm.
So the math does not add up. You're
Yep.
never gonna solve that equation until the overall economy gets hit, which then flips it around the other side.
yeah.
Right.
And even if you do an override, overrides are a dollar figure.
Yeah.
So you bring your revenues back up to your expenses, but then
Correct.
in the end, you do this again. And just,
Right.
you almost have
Yeah.
to sort of set yourself up for every 5, 6, or 7 years, you have to supplement.
Yeah, I think it's a new order. It's, 2.5 served its purpose, and, unfortunately, maybe it still serves its purpose per se, but it doesn't work.
Right.
I mean, there have been a couple of communities recently who have turned down 2.5 overrides. Franklin turned theirs down. There was a general override. Westwood didn't do a debt exclusion for the fire station, which you would think would be a given. I mean, people are concerned. I mean, nothing will be a slam dunk in Norwood.
No, absolutely not. And again, we'll do what's asked of us to sharpen the pencil and say, okay, as you mentioned,
Yep.
here's what it could look like.
Yeah.
Mm.
What do you want?
Yeah,
What do you want?
yeah.
Yeah. All right.
On that positive note,
Action items and follow-up. So action items, I'm gonna develop a proposed calendar for next year. Jeff is going to get us the information on the year-end transfer request before our July 10th meeting. Anything else?
Just to make sure the next meeting, which we have, this meeting we generally have, we have a Google link because, I won't be able to be here in person.
On July 10th?
Yeah.
Okay,
I will try to make the meeting, but
okay.
we'll see.
All right, thank you for the reminder. All right, if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Ann. Second by Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
You.
Thank you.